Guys, it's Miss Price. I wanted to go ahead and read the next few chapters with you and assign some work. I do apologize for not being able to assign work the other night. I couldn't. Cami was not working, and so just consider yourselves lucky. Hopefully, we were able to just to listen to the chapters that I read, 6, 7, and 8 in Don Quixote. But today we're going to be reading chapters 9 and 10. Um, Chapter 9 is The Knight of the Wood, and chapter 10 is The Adventure of the Lions. The Adventure of the Lions is probably my favorite chapter in the book, and you'll see why shortly. But let's look at our vocabulary words for the two chapters. We have duel, which is a noun, it's a fight between two people with weapons. Scheme, which was one of our vocabulary words last week, is a noun, it's a clever plan or plot to get or do something. Caravan is a noun, a group of people, animals, or vehicles traveling together. Bold, an adjective, which means fearless. Foolhardy, an adjective, foolishly dangerous or daring. And dumbfounded, it's an adjective, and it means shocked or surprised. Okay. Chapter 9 is not in your workbook, so if you'll just listen, I'll read it to you. Chapter 10 is in the book, but um, just listen and you'll understand the story. This one is The Knight of the Wood, chapter 9. Um, Don Quixote and Sancho were sleeping in the woods when a noise awakened them. Two men had come on horseback. One of them got off and invited the other to stay. There was good grass for the horses and peace and quiet for thought, he said. Don Quixote looked carefully. One of them was wearing armor. Sancho, my brother, adventure is before us, he said. The other knight heard voices and asked who was there. Don Quixote answered, and they got together. The two squires took off in another direction. The life of a squire is indeed hard, isn't it? The new squire said. It wouldn't be so bad if we ate regularly, Sancho replied. The other one took food out of his saddlebag and they shared it. Then they watched the stars for a while and fell asleep. Their masters were neither eating nor sleeping. The other knight, who called himself the Knight of the Wood, said to Don Quixote, the proudest moment of my life came when I defeated that famous knight, Don Quixote de la Mancha. I made him confess that my lady Casildea is more beautiful than his Dulcinea. I don't doubt that you have defeated the bravest knights in all Spain, but not Don Quixote de la Mancha, the self-same said. Let's see. Maybe someone who looked like him, but not him. Oh no, I can prove it to you. He's tall, thin, has a pointy nose, a big fallen mustache, and grayish hair. The other knight boasted. His squire is a farmer by the name of Sancho Panza. His horse is named Rocinante, and the lady of his dreams is Dulcinea del Toboso. It is absolutely false that you have defeated Don Quixote de la Mancha. I am Don Quixote de la Mancha, and you have never defeated me. I'll prove it to you with the strength of my arms. So will I. As soon as day breaks, his opponent said confidently. Sancho was speechless when he heard the news. A duel he feared for his master. The other squires suggested they too fight against or fight while their masters fought. That was the custom in his homeland, he said. Sancho replied that he was not going to fight. He had been a peaceful man all his life and intended to remain one. In broad daylight, Sancho saw an enormous nose on the other squire. This time it must be some kind of magic, he thought. Don Quixote, on the other hand, could not see his opponent's face, but he did see his armor. It was completely covered with tiny mirrors. He noticed, too, that the knight was a small man carrying an enormous lance. The winner of our fight will decide the fate of the loser, the Knight of the Wood said. Agreed, Don Quixote answered. Sancho climbed a tree to see the battle better, or, as Don Quixote accused him later, to have a better view without any danger. They fought. Don Quixote easily defeated the other knight. The fallen man looked dead. His squire without the horrible nose came running. So did Sancho, who wanted his master to kill the challenging knight. But then Don Quixote and Sancho saw the very figure of Samson Carrasco, the university graduate. And without the false nose, they discovered Tomé Cecil, Sancho's neighbor. The Knight of the Wood came too. Don Quixote put the sword to his chest. He made his opponent confess that Dulcinea was far superior and more beautiful than his Casildea. That the two men looked so familiar puzzled him a bit, but he concluded that they were not like the men they seemed to be. Oh, they're just lookalikes sent by the enchanters. My enemies enjoy confusing me, he said. Of course, there was no enchantment involved. Samson had planned the scheme, thinking that he could easily defeat his friend and make him go back home. Unfortunately for Samson, he had been very wrong. Chapter 10, The Adventure of the Lions. I'll pull it up for you here. Okay. Victory had a sweet taste. That taste was still with Don Quixote when they met a gentleman wearing a green overcoat. They decided to travel together since they were going in the same direction. The knight and the gentleman began a lively conversation. They talked about the man's family, what everyone did, and how his son, who was a student, had decided to become a poet. It didn't take long for the man in the green coat to think that his new friend was crazy. Sancho wasn't interested in their talk, however. He saw some shepherds milking their sheep at the side of the road and took a small detour to talk to them. The shepherds had cottage cheese for sale, and Sancho bought some. About the same time, Don Quixote spotted a small caravan flying royal banners. He called his squire because Sancho had the helmet. Sancho didn't have time to eat the cottage cheese. Since he didn't know what to do with it, he stuffed it in his master's helmet. Don Quixote put the helmet on. The whey from the cottage cheese started to drip. Somewhat frightened, he asked Sancho for a cloth to clean himself with. Then he took the helmet off and smelled it. You traitor and bad friend, this is one of your dirty tricks, he yelled at Sancho. You put cottage cheese in my helmet, and I thought there was something seriously wrong with me. Sancho said sheepishly, Master, if it's cottage cheese, give it to me, and I'll eat it. But believe me, master, I don't know how that got in there. I think that some wizard must be after me too, for being your squire. And as usual, Don Quixote blamed his enemies. Everything is possible, Sancho, he said. Their traveling companion could not believe what he had just seen and heard, until he saw what came next. The ox cart with royal banners was at their side now. With it came a cart driver and another man. Don Quixote planted himself in the middle of the road, blocking their way. Where to, brothers? What are you carrying in that ox cart? What do those banners mean? He asked the men. The cart is mine, the driver answered. I'm transporting two brave lions to the court. They are a gift to the king. The banners mean that the cargo is His Majesty's property. Are the lions big? Don Quixote asked. They're the biggest that I've ever crossed from Africa to Spain, the lion keeper said. I should know. I have transported many other lions before, none like these. The one in the front cage is the male, the other the female. Right now they are very hungry. They haven't had a thing to eat all day. So, your lordship, I suggest you move away and let us go. These animals need to be fed soon. Oh, here we go, guys. Don Quixote smiled with pure joy. Lions, a couple of puny lions should scare me, huh? He said. Good man, since you are the lion keeper, open the cages and let those beasts out. I will show them who Don Quixote de la Mancha is, in spite of the wizards who have sent them to me. The man in the green coat mumbled, No doubt about it, either the man is crazy or the cottage cheese softened his brain. Sancho, who heard his remark, said, No, he's not crazy, just bold. Everybody wanted to convince Don Quixote that it was foolhardy to face the lions. Actually, it was suicide, they said. But all talk failed. and those present scattered as fast and as far away as they could before the cage was opened. Sancho cried deep, heartfelt tears. Oh, my master, my friend, is going to become a lion's dinner, he said between sobs. Under threat, then, the lion keeper opened one cage. Don Quixote thought for a minute. Should he face the lion on horseback or on foot? On foot, he decided. Rocinante might get scared by the sight of the lion. The lion turned around in his cage, then stretched. He opened his mouth and yawned, then showed a huge tongue and cleaned his face with it. Next, he stuck his face out of the cage and looked around, his eyes like burning coals. Don Quixote stared at him. He wished with all his heart that the beast would jump on him so he could strangle it with his bare hands. The lion, on the other hand, wasn't interested. He turned around, showed his back to the knight, and sat down again in his cage. Don Quixote was furious. He wanted the lion keeper to make the lion mad. The lion keeper said he would not. No, your lordship. The lion had the cage open and didn't feel like coming out. You have proved beyond all doubt that you are a brave and courageous man. The lion didn't want to fight. The shame is on him. Don Quixote was satisfied with his reasoning and called all the others. They were dumbfounded at seeing him in one piece, without even a scratch. The lion keeper filled them in on the details of what they had missed, actions and words. As soon as I arrive at the court, I will personally tell his majesty of Don Quixote's courage, he said. Sancho, on Don Quixote's orders, gave the driver and lion keeper a little money to make up for the delay. The men went happily on their way, relieved that nothing had happened when they had expected the worst. From now on, Don Quixote announced, I shall proudly bear the title Knight of the Lions next to my own name. Okay? So, boys and girls, that's chapters 9 and 10. And here in just a little bit, we're going to go ahead and do chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14. And then we'll talk about the chapters and do some workbook pages. Talk to you in a bit, guys.
Are they on there?